Hey, what's going on? I'm recording a pre-recorded chat for film study number 3 tonight, so let's jump right on into it. Sorry, it's my daughter. Tonight we're going to deal with a couple things. We're going to deal with primarily auteur and genre theory. I'll focus on auteur theory since I know that you two who have chosen to do the project are focused on your directors, and then some other film techniques and a kind of a recapitulation of what we were talking about of those film techniques from last week. You're using them slightly better in your work. I just want to make sure you're doing that as to the best of your ability so that you can earn proficiency and potentially raise your year-end grade. And then obviously we're going to deal with what it says on the screen, active and passive voice, to try to make sure that you're not using the verb to be or speaking about somebody in a passive voice. And then we'll deal with the exit ticket and move on. So that being said, the idea tonight is for you to think about the writing standards and review the rubric. And so you guys can see right here, there's a link to the rubric. And it's obviously adapted to the fourth quarter of 2020. So it's attempted, a C or a D would be attempted, and then a B or an A would be proficient. The concept is that I want you guys to have some balance between some of your research that you've done. Hopefully you're not just reading things from Internet Movie Database or a lot of .com websites, but you're also be able to use some academic websites. Obviously, as soon as you start moving into JSTOR or Questia or any databases, like you did with your research project, you're going to do that quite well. You'll meet these criteria quite well. The other element is that you are then synthesizing. And remember, synthesizing is the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, where you're taking different sources and adapting what the sources say about film to the chosen director, so Gerwig or Nolan. The auteur or genre thesis needs to be something that's complex. It's not simply that Nolan explores the world. What does he explore about the world? Ideally, it's not going to be overly simple, like Nolan explores memory and the past, which is a fact-based concept. It's not really a thesis, and we'll go over the idea between a complex and a simple thesis tonight. For your works cited or consulting page, if you're citing things correctly and you have at least 4 sources, you've moved right into the proficient zone itself. And so ideally, you guys are working within these parameters. If you do only have 3 sources, then your project is going to be attempted and you're not going to be able to earn the higher grade. So again, think about this as the roadmap for success. You're going to hear the kids come in a minute. They are overwhelming today. Okay, so we have a minimum of 10 slides. Ideally, you have 3 slides per evaluation of your film, but some of you may actually have 20 slides, just because I don't want you to fall prey to something that I've had to do here, where I'm using font 18. It's really, really difficult to see anything lower than font 18, or smaller rather than font 18, or size 18. So please make sure that you are thinking about the aesthetics of your project too, the multimodal aspect of it. Okay, so again, look, this right here, you can barely see what's going on. You can see very little of or read very little of the work. Think about how much you're trying to cram. So all of these slides are from last year's students. They're all missing one thing. What do you think they're missing? If they come running through, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this back on so you can see them, because they are crazy all the time, all the time. This is meant to be multimodal, and so they're all missing images. You got it. That's right. So please make sure you're thinking about images. So we talked a little bit more about evaluation of film and evaluation of literature. They both require you to look at elements like metaphor, topic, or theme in literature, but in film you're looking at obviously the film techniques, and that's something I want you to focus on. So auteur theory is what we're going to deal with today, because none of you are dealing with genre. It's a reflection that the film itself is some sort of vision that the director has for society, humanity, the world, life, anything. Again, that Nolan is looking at memory and the past is not an argument. That's true. He does that. Gerwig explores how women work within their own power. What is she saying about that concept of power? What is she saying about a woman's place or a female's place in modern day society? Yes, we know that women are marginalized. Yes, we know that memory is difficult to deal with. But you want to try to explore something a little bit more complex. So, this is something I stole from online. So all this means that you need to know is the director's movie is by stylistic choices. J.J. Abrams, another famous director, is notorious because of his use of lens flares. No, he's not. But that's not really to say that that's not beginning to move in the direction that we're looking for. So the record scratch here is that an auteur has a vision. Lens flares lead us to think a little bit about how he's highlighting a character. What is he highlighting within those scenes? And that's where you have to analyze those scenes. So what ties the director's work together? I'm just going to let you go ahead. Guys, come on through. I'm trying my... Is William still outside?
Yes.
Okay. Can you bear with me, please? I'm sorry for 30 seconds. High five.
Hello.
So again, style and effect, style and effect. What about those lens flares, i.e. the style, then leads you to think about a certain effect? What does it do to the film? How does it deal with the meaning of what you're trying to get at? How does it tie to content? So you guys have at least watched 2 videos. How do the films then relate to one another? And how is the director, Gerwig or Nolan, tying the 2 films together? Every slide should deal with a return to that auteur thesis, either referentially, specifically, or using the same exact words, or maybe tacitly, if you have some sort of aspect about femininity or some element of memory, etc., etc. So here's an example from, again, a student from last year. While James Gunn's films Guardian of the Galaxy and Super varied widely in their reviews, but they both demonstrated his unique style of storytelling. Despite being set in completely different universes and made under completely different genres, these 2 movies both emphasized Gunn's way of breaking the protagonist at the very beginning of the film and slowly rebuilding him through a mixture between a redemption arc and a character development arc. That's from one of your Fairfax County peers last year. So you can see in green we've highlighted the analysis, and that's the thesis. It's complex because there is some element of argument that the protagonist may not have actually been broken at the very beginning of the film, but had to deal with some sort of tension or perhaps even conflict. The use of the techniques, redemptive arc and character development arc, are pretty specific. And this student actually didn't earn the highest grade, earned a B for this, because he is not necessarily dealing specifically with filmmaking techniques, but more characterization techniques, or even structural techniques. And I'd like you guys to begin thinking about concepts of color and sound and light and framing and all of the elements that we talked about last week. So again, I'm thinking about your worldview, your director's worldview, or really what he or she is trying to address about humanity, society. This is where you can return to those cheesy answers in 9th grade where somebody would say, this book is about humanity. Well, what is it saying about humanity? That's the message we're looking for. What is it saying about society or life? So maybe you remember the difference between a simple and a complex thesis. A simple, not arguable. A complex, more arguable. Somebody could say that it's not just the redemption arc, but the character development arc, and the character development arc for James Gunn. It actually has a lot to do with secondary characters. And so you want to move in a direction where your thesis is arguable. So your Department of Education standards for reading is that you're going to comprehend a variety of different literature. And obviously you're looking at different films. Maybe they're within the same genre, drama, or maybe they're not. And so that's something we're going to work toward. So we're not going to work with the discussion. We're going to jump right back into shots, transitions, camera movements, framing, etc., etc. And the film terminology that I gave you last week should certainly help you with this. Just use this as a checklist, and that's going to help you immensely because it's going to clearly tie the elements of film and actually the visual medium that film is to your analysis. If you don't know where that is, here's our webpage. You can go to Share Docs, Exemplars, and Resources, and it's right there after the bottom. promise it is. Or it will be. It was also on the front page, but I will have to fix that. I apologize. So just use these terms because that's going to help take a look at the visual concept alone. So this was an element to try to get you guys to engage. You're obviously not in the same thing. There are 2 exercises I'd like you to think about, but I'd really like you to think about why active and passive voice is something that's so problematic in writing. This is Hamilton College, which is in New York, and they have 7 deadly sins of writing, the first one being the passive voice. You can just read a couple of these. You hear this a lot in the news. On April 19th, 1775, arms were seized at Concord. Well, who did it? It was the British soldiers. Use the subject to kind of to drive the concept of the sentence home. Ideally, what you do is you just select is or select to be in all of your writing and try to get rid of it as much as possible. So why do so many professors actually have these problems? Because passive voice takes the power out of the subject and actually oftentimes just neglects to address the subject. So active voice is the word of the chat. So you have 3 things going on. We have your film project and your works cited and also your 5 to 10 minute presentation. Hey, Kelly, this doesn't work. You're going to do something. The 5 to 10 minute presentation in chat is what's going to happen next week, and that's where Brooke is going to present to Jenna. I'll give you some feedback. You're welcome to adapt and kind of revise between the 12th of May and the 19th of May. And then we all get back together, hopefully all 22 of us, on Tuesday, May 19th for the final chat of the year. So next week, each of you guys is going to present 5 to 10 minutes per person, have some evaluation. Here's a visual look at that. Today is obviously the 5th. We'll see each other on the 12th, and then everybody's coming back together on the 19th. Same thing, just repeat. No changes here. We can go ahead and skip that one. Your exit ticket is right there, and I also gave it to you in the email earlier today. Hope this works for you. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.